Continents that no longer exist. Life on the supercontinent Pangea. 250 million years ago, Earth looked completely different. All of today's continents were joined together into a single gigantic landmass, Pangea. A single landmass stretched from pole to pole. There was no Atlantic Ocean, and the continents as we know them did not exist. Vast deserts gave way to endless plains, and the interior regions were so far from the seas that the climate became harsh and arid. The world of Pangea was a world of extremes. In summer, temperatures soared to unbearable heat. In winter, cold spells set in. Seasonal droughts destroyed vegetation. It was under these very conditions that a new era of life began. After the catastrophic Permian-Triassic extinction event, the planet had almost lost its former ecosystems. The vacated niches became a launching pad for new animals. Giant amphibians inhabited the marshy riverbanks. They resembled enormous, flat predators with broad heads and powerful jaws, lying in wait for prey in the water. The first ancestors of dinosaurs were already moving across land. Small, light, and fast archosaurs gradually occupied new territories. Among them were early dinosaurs, such as Earaptor. This small animal was capable of feeding on almost anything it could find. Animals could migrate thousands of kilometers. The same species ranged from what would become South America to Europe and Africa. Evolution was happening rapidly. Predators were getting faster. Herbivores were learning to defend themselves. Reptiles began to displace amphibians from the land. Insects grew to large sizes, and the first flying reptiles filled the air. But Pangea itself was unstable. Energy was building up beneath the Earth's crust. The continent began to slowly crack. The land drifted apart, and the unified world gradually fell apart. This split changed the course of evolution. When Pangea split into northern Laurasia and southern Gondwana, animals found themselves isolated. It was then that dinosaurs began to evolve into a diverse array of giants that would later conquer the planet. Pangea became the cradle of the age of dinosaurs, the last moment in Earth's history when all life existed on a single continent, without the boundaries of oceans or divided worlds. How did the breakup of Pangaea change the evolution of life? Once upon a time, all of Earth's landmasses were united into a single giant continent, Pangaea. Animals roamed freely across the planet. Climate zones were vast, and ecosystems were relatively uniform. But about 200 million years ago, the Earth began to change. Deep beneath the crust, pressure was building. The continent was slowly cracking. Huge rifts filled with water, and the single world began to break apart. This marked the first great geological upheaval, the breakup of Pangaea. The landmass split into two gigantic masses, northern Laurasia and southern Gondwana. This process changed everything. The oceans became natural barriers. Animal populations found themselves isolated from one another. Species that had previously belonged to a single world began to evolve independently. Evolution accelerated. In the north, in Laurasia, the climate became more variable. New forests and vast plains appeared there. It was under these conditions that the future giants, tyrannosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, and horned herbivores emerged. Southern Gondwana took a different path, the continents that would become Africa. South America, Australia, and Antarctica retained their own distinct animal lineages. Here, abelisaurids thrived, as did the unusual long-necked titanosaurs. The separation of the continents created the effect of evolutionary laboratories. The same ancestors, once on different continents, evolved into completely different animals. In some places, dinosaurs grew larger. In others, they became dwarf island forms. Elsewhere, new ways of feeding and defending themselves emerged. The planet's climate also changed. The rifting of Pangea gave rise to new oceans. Ocean currents changed, rainfall along the coasts increased, and humid tropical zones emerged. Forests spread where deserts had once been, plants evolved, and herbivores, followed by predators, changed in response. The planet ceased to be a single world and became a mosaic of ecosystems. It was the breakup of Pangaea that made possible the emergence of the dinosaurs we know, the first birds and early mammals. The splitting of the world did not destroy life. It gave it a chance to diversify. From that moment on, Earth's evolution was never uniform again. It became the story of many worlds, separated by oceans but linked by a shared past. While the Northern Hemisphere was just beginning to form the continents we know today, in the south there existed another planet within a planet, the vast supercontinent of Gondwana. It included what would become Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, India, and Madagascar. It was a land of contrasts. Lush jungles gave way to arid plains, and ancient forests began to fill with river systems. The main giants of the south were the Dinosaurs, the last great long-necked dinosaurs. Among them stood out Dinosaurs, one of the largest land animals in Earth's history. Unique predators, the abelisaurids, appeared here. Short-snouted, powerful, and fast, they differed from the tyrannosaurs of the north. One of the most famous was Carnotaurus, a light, swift runner with distinctive horns above its eyes, built for lightning-fast attacks. Giant crocodilians served as aquatic predators. Some of them hunted not only in the water but also on land. For example, Sarcosuchus grew to the size of a bus and could even attack dinosaurs that came to drink at watering holes. While the giants dominated, a new group of animals, early mammals, developed in the shadows. These small, nocturnal creatures hid among tree roots and in burrows, avoiding encounters with dinosaurs. Their small size, fast metabolism, and nocturnal lifestyle allowed them to survive the age of the giants. Isolation played a key role. South America developed its own predators. Australia became a refuge for ancient animal lineages. Antarctica was still green and inhabited by dinosaurs. Each fragment that broke off carried its own unique fauna with it, but the fate of the southern giant was sealed. The gradual breakup of the continent altered the climate, ocean currents, and ecosystems, and then a global catastrophe, the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, brought the age of the dinosaurs to an end. Gondwana disappeared as a single world, but its legacy lives on to this day. Australia's strange animals, South America's unique fauna, all of these are echoes of the forgotten southern continent, where giants once reigned. Today, Antarctica is a world of eternal cold and kilometer-long glaciers. But millions of years ago, everything was different. During the Cretaceous period, Antarctica was a green continent covered in dense forests. Conifers and flowering plants grew here. Temperatures were mild, and the marshes teemed with life, and yet it remained a polar world. Even without ice, Antarctica experienced long months of darkness. In winter, the sun barely rose above the horizon, and the ecosystem existed under the conditions of a prolonged polar night. Dinosaurs lived in these forests. One of the most famous inhabitants was Cryolophosaurus, a large predator with an unusual crest on its head. It hunted among the coniferous forests and river valleys where its prey hid. Small herbivorous dinosaurs, similar to early ornithopods, lived alongside it. Later, ankylosaurs and other herbivorous species appeared on the continent. Life here required special adaptations. Scientists speculate that many Antarctic dinosaurs had large eyes adapted to low light and grew rapidly, allowing them to survive seasonal hardships. Some species may not have migrated but remained in the same area year-round, a unique strategy for dinosaurs in polar regions. Antarctic forests were filled with the sounds of insects, ancient birds, and small mammals hiding under the cover of night. An ecosystem was forming here that was unlike either the tropics or temperate zones. But changes were already underway. As Gondwana broke apart, Antarctica separated from Australia and South America. Ocean currents shifted, the continent became isolated, and the climate began to cool rapidly. The continent was turning into an icy desert. After the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, the dinosaurs disappeared, and tens of millions of years later, Antarctica was finally covered in ice. Today, hidden beneath kilometers of ice, lie traces of a world where dinosaurs lived under the light of the polar night, a reminder that even Earth's coldest continent was once green and teeming with life. Drifting across the ocean and the lost world of dinosaurs, the future Indian subcontinent broke away from the southern lands and drifted northward across the vast Tethys Ocean. For millions of years, India existed as an isolated island continent. Ocean waters cut it off from other ecosystems, and animals evolved here according to their own rules. Unique dinosaurs lived on this moving landmass. One of the main predators was Rajasaurus, a powerful southern theropod with a distinctive horn on its head. It represented a line of predators that had nearly disappeared in the north. Titanosaurs, the last of the long-necked dinosaur giants, roamed the plains. Among them was Icysaurus, a massive herbivore adapted to the hot climate and seasonal droughts. Isolation gave rise to a distinctive fauna. Unusual dinosaur eggs, unique predators, and distinct lineages of herbivores. About 55 million years ago, the Indian subcontinent collided with Asia. This collision gave rise to the Himalayas and completely transformed the region's climate. Ecosystems intermingled, ancient animal lineages disappeared, and the world of Indian dinosaurs survived only in the fossil record. The continent reached its destination, but its prehistoric world vanished forever. Today, Europe appears to be a single landmass, but in the late Cretaceous period, it looked completely different. Rising sea levels flooded most of the continent. Europe became a chain of large islands separated by warm seas. Each island became a separate evolutionary experiment. Isolation gave rise to a phenomenon known as island dwarfism, when large animals shrink in size due to limited resources. This is how Magyarosaurus came to be, a long-necked dinosaur only about 6 meters long, several times smaller than its giant relatives. Strange platypus-like dinosaurs also lived on the islands. For example, Telmatosaurus adapted to life in limited ecosystems. Predators changed as well. Some theropods became smaller and specialized in hunting in the dense forests of the islands, where there was no room for giants. Europe during the Cretaceous period was a world of miniature dinosaurs. Small herds, short migrations, local ecosystems, isolated by water. Each island developed its own fauna, as if it were a separate continent in miniature. When sea levels later dropped and the continents drew closer together, many of these unique species disappeared. Their world had become too specialized for a changing planet. The European archipelago serves as a reminder of how isolation can transform even the Earth's largest creatures, turning giants into dwarfs. A world of predators, giants, and forgotten ecosystems. Long before humans appeared, Africa was one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Predatory theropods ruled here. One of the greatest hunters was Spinosaurus, a semi-aquatic giant with a long crocodile-like snout and a massive sail on its back. Unlike most dinosaurs, it spent a significant portion of its time in the water. Other predators also roamed the area. Africa's river systems were the scene of constant ambushes. And unusual dinosaurs possessed hundreds of teeth adapted for eating low-growing vegetation. Mesozoic Africa was an ecosystem of competition. This ancient world disappeared long before humans appeared, but it laid the foundation for the future diversity of African life. The most mysterious of these is the continent of Zealandia, almost entirely submerged beneath the waters of the Pacific Ocean. It was once part of the ancient continent of Gondwana. Today, only New Zealand and a few islands remain above water, but millions of years ago, it was a vast landmass with its own unique fauna. Small herbivorous dinosaurs lived here, some of the most successful survivors of the Cretaceous period. What are ornithopods? Ornithopods are fast, bipedal herbivorous dinosaurs. They weren't enormous or armed with powerful weapons, but they had the advantage of speed, intelligence, and living in groups. Bones of small ornithopods, similar to southern Gondwanan forms, have been found in ancient Zealandia. Malosaurus. Some bone fragments point to the existence of yet another small herbivorous dinosaur adapted to the cool climate of the southern latitudes. Life near the Arctic Circle. During the Cretaceous period, Zealandia was located much further south, almost at the edge of Antarctica. Ornithopods lived in conditions of long winter twilight, a cool climate, and seasonal food shortages. Yet they may have been covered in primitive feathers. They had large eyes adapted to low light. They also migrated within forested regions. They were able to reproduce rapidly. They formed the basis of Zealandia's food chain. They were the prey of local theropods. The ornithopod fauna indicates that Zealandia was not an isolated island from the very beginning. The Cretaceous forests of ancient Zealandia seemed peaceful, dense vegetation, a humid climate, and herds of small herbivorous dinosaurs. But hunters were lurking among the trees. Zealandia remained part of Gondwana for a long time, so its predators were related to the dinosaurs of Australia and Antarctica. Abelisaurids. These were stealthy killers and likely the region's apex predators. They had short, powerful snouts, a strong bite, and attacked from ambush. They did not pursue their prey for long. The strike had to be precise. Megaraptors may have inhabited the forest ecosystems of Zealandia. Their weapons were long arms, enormous claws, and high speed. Such predators could have driven young ornithopods out of the herd. Small theropods, similar to the early relatives of dromaeosaurs, likely hunted in groups. They would surround their prey, attack from different sides, and wear it down. For young ornithopods, these predators posed the greatest danger. The ecosystem differed from the open plains of North America. Here, it was not the largest predator that prevailed, but the most inconspicuous one. Without these predators, herds of ornithopods would have quickly destroyed the vegetation. It was precisely the pressure of predation that shaped their speed, intelligence, and social behavior. In the forests of Zealandia, every day was a struggle. The predator sought the herd's weakness, and the herd sought a chance to survive. The Cretaceous period. The southern latitudes of the ancient continent of Zealandia. There is no permanent ice here. Instead, there are damp coniferous forests, thickets of ancient ferns, and long months of polar twilight. And as a pale dawn slowly rose over ancient Zealandia, somewhere deep in the forest, the next hunt was already beginning. Isolated Laurasia. The birth of giants. In the middle of the Mesozoic era, the ancient world split apart. The supercontinent Pangea began to break apart, dividing the planet into two enormous continents. In the north, Laurasia emerged. This land would become the cradle of the most famous dinosaurs in history. Laurasia included what would become North America, Europe, and Asia. But it was not a single continent in the usual sense. Rising sea levels divided the land into a chain of enormous islands and inland seas. In essence, the northern hemisphere became a gigantic archipelago of dinosaurs. Isolation altered the course of evolution. Animals that found themselves cut off from one another began to evolve according to their own rules. Predators grew larger, herbivores became more numerous, and ecosystems became increasingly specialized. It was here that the tyrannosaurs first appeared. Early relatives of the Tyrannosaurus were small and light hunters. But in the conditions of Laurasia, competitors either disappeared or remained on the southern continents. The vacant niche at the top of the food chain allowed tyrannosaurids to evolve into giants with the most powerful bite among land animals. At the same time, another evolutionary revolution was taking place. The rise of the duck-billed dinosaurs, or hadrosaurs. Hadrosaurs became the true masters of the plant world. Their powerful rows of teeth allowed them to chew tough vegetation. Their herd lifestyle provided protection. Complex vocal signals helped coordinate huge groups. Isolation also gave rise to unusual forms. In Europe, dinosaurs became smaller in size due to island conditions. Feathered predators and early birds emerged in Asia. But this world did not last long by geological standards. By the end of the Cretaceous period, global climate change and the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event had wiped out most of the dinosaurs. Laurasia ceased to exist as a single landmass, splitting into the continents we know today. However, it was right here, On the island of dinosaurs, that creatures emerged which became symbols of the entire prehistoric era. Giant tyrannosaurs and countless herds of duck-billed dinosaurs. These are the last rulers of the Northern Earth. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, and leave comments. Click the bell icon so you don't miss new and interesting videos from the Real Unreal channel.